Brant has been out for a couple of days now, and since I've had the chance to properly test him out more extensively, I thought I'd deliver my more fleshed out thoughts on the character, evaluate whether my pre-release pros and cons were accurate or not, and give my opinion on where I currently think he stands in the meta. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. For starters, I stated that Brant will be the Changli buff that all of us Phoenix Lady mains have been waiting for, and as an avid enjoyer of her myself, yeah, I have to agree. He performs excellently with her, and does everything within her teams that I was hoping he would do. Her damage output has only massively benefited from him, thanks to his excellent outro skill. This really reduces how hard it is to play Changli, because this offers her a strong team in which you can play her more like a main DPS, as opposed to a quick swap teammate. The buffs that he passes on to her make such a playstyle more worthwhile. With that being said, you can still quick swap between them to maximize the team's damage output if you so choose. I'd say that if you're a massive Changli fan, then this dude is genuinely the missing piece of the puzzle that you'll always have wanted. I thought she felt great to play before already, but the pirate lad seriously elevated it up to another level. Also, I'd like to take a moment to talk about him in the overworld, because of how ridiculously impressed I am with how nicely he fits into my Changli teams there. After all, exploration and overworld content are a large part of Wuthering Waves in-game content, so I think this is worth touching on briefly. In my opinion, the Phoenix Lady is one of the most comfortable overworld units in the entire game. I legitimately cannot think of other units that I would rather use over her, because she's just so convenient with how she front-loads a large amount of AoE fusion damage with her skill. Brant only adds on to this, by being a really comfortable slot-in that also gets the job done with very few strings attached. Because you build so much ER on him, you'll find that using his ult in the overworld is actually pretty comfy, as you get it back almost instantly after every combat encounter, and he's able to provide a really nice shield, not to mention his lovely heals. You get his outro skill up pretty fast, meaning you can swap to Changli to finish off whoever you're fighting, assuming Brant hasn't already ended the enemies with his charged up forte. As a Changli made in both TOA and the overworld, I have to say, I literally could not have asked for a better overworld unit. It's almost stupid as to how convenient he is. With that being said, the point about his ult being up on the regular only applies if you're running a high ER build. Molten Rift builds may not experience that particular comfort to the same degree that I did. Also, because Brant deals a good amount of damage if built well, it feels like there's constantly high damage being dealt in the team. It's seriously excellent in terms of gameplay feel, man. Before, I mentioned how he'd be able to replace Changli in some of her previous teams as well, meaning that his value wouldn't be totally tied to her. This rings true, with a few minor tweaks here and there. For starters, he's actually better for Encore and Chishia over the Phoenix Lady, because his outro skill suits those two characters better, so that's cool. He's just good for fusion DPSs in general in the same way that Changli is. He does indeed work fine with characters like Phoebe, Jinchi, and Carlotta. However, he can't abuse swap windows nearly as well as the Phoenix Lady can, due to how greedy he is for field time. You really want to work on building up that forte gauge of his. So while he will work in these situations, he will feel clunkier than using Changli. With some characters, you just aren't really going to be quick swapping. He's essentially just a regular second slot teammate for Phoebe as an example. Not worth trying to abuse swap windows at all with those two on the same team. I will add that his DPS-based teams end up being better than I expected. Like seriously. Brant being supported by a Sanhua isn't all that bad if your pirate lad is well built. Emphasis on well built. If you don't have a signature weapon or a really good echo setup on him, then this is actually going to feel pretty bad. I talked about how he'd be a master of many trades due to his ability to do so many different things. Yeah, I'd say so. His healing and shielding fit very naturally into his rotation, since you get those from following the usual steps you would want to take in order to yield the most out of Brant's damage. With that being said, this guy's personal damage is nothing to scoff at if you have a signature. That fully charged Forte skill is gnarly, man. He does all of the jobs that you'd want him to do, and does them all pretty well. You're primarily going to be playing him as a second slot teammate to act as either a dual carry or sub DPS for whoever the first slot main DPS is. I don't recommend playing him as a third slot sustained teammate in endgame content. I actually think that for the overworld, he's one of the most comfortable third slot teammates you could ever ask for, and the fact that he's such an all-in-one character means that he'll be often able to solo most things in the overworld on his own. But in endgame content, yeah, the guy wants his field time pretty badly. His outro buffs aren't team-wide, they only apply to the next character over, so it just makes more logical sense to use him as a second slot teammate. I mentioned that he'd be a very casual friendly unit. Well, I've already glazed his overworld performance to death, so that's that. Otherwise, his casual friendliness is really neat. Shielding and healing in the same kit is insane, especially when the shield is as substantial as Brant's is. It's also lovely that the shield applies to all of your characters individually, as opposed to it being one universal team shield that can get whittled down easily. Nope, Brant went and said sharing is caring. What a generous lad. His playstyle is also as foolproof as it gets, holding down his normal attack twice after ulting, then using his skill, and echo. Oh, the horror! Seriously, I don't think Kuro could have made this character feel any easier to execute. What's nice is that he's easy to use, but the feedback is still really nice. Despite his simplicity, he feels super fluid and movement heavy, even if the actual skill requirement in order to use his kit is very low. Anybody can use Brant to a solid extent. However, I get mad when this dude's anchor is interrupted, or when he gets knocked out of his spins. His I-4 is supposed to help remedy this, but he still ends up being fragile and easily knocked out of his spinny state or anchor plunge. Missing out on the anchor sucks, because it deals so much freaking damage. And when he misses his liberation anchor, okay, you get the idea. Lad is a tad frustrating to operate at times. With that being said, it's not a deal breaker or anything like that, but I've done my fair share of molding over his poor interruption resistance. I want to fry him in oil every time he gets knocked out of his anchor state, dude. I previously stated that his Whimpering Wastes performance would be out of this world. Yep, he fills in for downtimes very well, which is one of the main things that this game mode really wants. Changli is also one of the best Whiwa characters, and what do you know? Brant works extremely well with her. He fills in for her downtimes wonderfully. If you're in need of a character who can really help you excel at this game mode, then Brant is seriously great for the job. And because he's a good second stall teammate in general, you can even go down the route of using Changli on one half and Brant on the other, thus netting you the absolute best of both worlds. So yes, he definitely did end up impressing me here. But such was to be expected of a great Changli teammate. I will add, solo Phoenix Lady is better than solo Pirate Lad. I mean solo as in played without one another in a team. That's because the latter doesn't abuse swap windows as well. But fear not, as he'll still certainly get the job done. I had mentioned how his ER requirements were going to be some of the most dire stat requirements that we've had in the game to date. Lo and behold, his signature is a borderline requirement if you want to yield impressive performance out of this guy, because if you skip it, have fun building up all of a 250% ER manually. You can cope with Overture, but this weapon was intended to be used to support characters. It's literally a concerto weapon. Whereas Brant's signature offers him some really nice offensive stats in its passive. It's such a unique sword, and literally no other 5-star sword comes close to it. He has such specific stat requirements to the point where we have no pre-existing free-to-play friendly options that perfectly suit his needs. Don't get me wrong, he'll still cook fine on alternative options, and will still clear endgame content on a cheaper build. However, it's undeniable that this guy's ER demands seriously bog down the experience of building him. Good luck trying to get all the ER you want, along with ideal crit stats. His outro skill buffs cancelling on swap out isn't that big of a deal to me. Most of the time you'll be fully utilizing the buffs with your first slot character. If you're quick swapping with Brant in the first place, it's because you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're rarely ever going to be in a situation where you have to swap off of the buffed unit early, thus negating the value of Brant's outro skill completely. And now for what we've all been waiting for. Where do I currently think that Brant stands in the meta? Well, I think he's a really solid pull. Not some crazy must pull by any means, but certainly a good choice. It sucks that so much of his higher end value is tied to his signature weapon. He's even more signature reliant than Yinlin, which is an achievement for sure. Not necessarily one to be proud of either. Yikes. With that being said, he does so many things well, while fitting into such a wide variety of teams. You'll certainly be able to find a use for him on your account, and I find that he's a really good unit to have for the main core experience of Wuthering Waves. That being, his excellence in the overworld. He's skippable, and you don't need him for Changli. You can continue to enjoy using her as a second slot dual carry teammate within most main DPS teams. I'm really happy with how his actual kit was designed. The contents of his abilities are excellent, and he seriously improves my Wuthering Waves gameplay experience. This character is quite literally everything that I was looking for in terms of gameplay. I couldn't have asked for any better. Genuinely. A good unit for sure. You'll definitely find solid use for him on your account, no matter your investment level. But seriously, do not commit to him without knowing what you're getting yourself into. Farming his echoes is going to be a nightmare. Mentally prepare yourself for that grueling experience. It makes me happy to see how many people love Brant. I'm proud to be a supporter of this guy, having invested a good chunk into his banner. I really do like the kit that Kuro cooked up, outside of the ER requirement issue. And let's just be real, he's also a super likable dude. Come on, did you do his story quest? How can you not like this guy? Anyways, he's a good character that's currently held back by awkward weapon options. Hopefully in the future, Kuro adds some event or gacha 4-star weapon that'll suit his kit better, so he's not going to permanently be such a signature-reliant character. But what do you think about Brant? Is this Pirate Lad everything that you've ever wanted him to be? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturday, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you my more developed opinions on Brant now that we've had him out for a while. This has been Juice, signing out, and Brant, As much as I like you, dude, if you get interrupted during your anchor one more freaking time, I'm literally going to steal your air fryer.